All right, you guys, welcome back to the integration code. I am sorry it has been a minute. I am someone who is so big on following the pulsation of aliveness, your creative flow. And right now, I'm in the process of creating and writing my very first book. And it has been all consuming, you guys, but in the very, very best way. And I'm so excited to share that with you, but I'm not quite ready to give you all the deets yet. However, what I will say is this book is so much more than something you read. It is an energetic transmission that not only is going to help you to cultivate a deeper relationship, with yourself, with your spirit and your body, but really help you start living more from your essence and from your soul than from the head and from the trauma that maybe you've endured. So I'll just segue that a little bit, but we're gonna put the pin in that for now and get into today's episode. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kaylyn Rutkowski. I am a somatic guide, a psychedelic facilitator. I really stand for deep state work and really giving people a permission slip to be who they really are, to stop performing healing and what it looks like to actually return home to yourself. So, I'm going to give you guys a little caveat today. Today is not a feel good episode. It's not soft, it's not sanitized. And this is an episode that reveals the shadow that most healing spaces really refuse to touch and honestly bypass more times than not. So, what I really want to get into today is, this idea or this wound that I see in the collective where healing has really become a new coping mechanism. Maybe it has become this new form of avoidance. Maybe healing has become your new identity. And what if the quest to fixing yourself is the very thing preventing you from meeting the self that's already there? I really want that to land because what I see happening all the time in the coaching space, in the spiritual space, personal development, is this heavy idea that we have to constantly be fixing ourselves and working on ourselves. It's this idea of being perfect, okay? And trying to get to this perfected version of ourselves. And, what I've really learned from my over a decade in the space and coaching thousands of people is that it's not about fixing ourselves. It's more about revealing ourselves. It's more about learning to meet ourselves and to fully accept the whole capacity of our uniqueness, of our humanness, of our otherness. And it's not about having to fix it or to be perfect. It's about creating space for all of it to be there and to be in the room. So, this conversation, we're going to touch on the nervous system. I might poke your ego just a little bit, and it will absolutely expand your capacity. And it may also set you free. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, where do we even begin with this? I think there's this spiritual addiction that no one really sees coming. And I'm just going to preface this. We're about to go all the way in, okay? Get some popcorn, get your favorite drink. We're going deep. Most people don't end up in the healing space because they are spiritually curious, right? They end up here because their body, their spirit is exhausted. They're burned out, they're disassociated, carrying responsibility that was never really theirs to hold, running on these survival loops that they learned at a very young age, some as early as, 2 to 5 years old. And in that exhaustion, the psyche does something brilliant. It transforms our pain into a project. Okay? And can you feel into that and where you may have done that yourself? You know, suddenly your trauma becomes a self-improvement plan. Your dysregulation becomes a mission. Your emptiness becomes this problem to fix, and your worth becomes a state of performance. And all of these things, what they really end up doing is they give us the illusion of control. Healing becomes the new hustle. But, there's a deeper truth here, okay? Healing addiction is 1000% a trauma response. It's hypervigilance disguised as self-awareness. It's unmet childhood terror wrapped up in spiritual language. It's, if I can improve fast enough, then maybe I'll finally be safe. Oof, right? How many of us can resonate with that one? This is the wound that no one really wants to look at, and the wound that I see constantly being bypassed in the spiritual space, especially by people who claim to be spiritual teachers and elders. Because what happens when the chase stops? What happens when there's nothing left to fix? What happens when you're forced to meet the rawness underneath the hustle? Most people have never met their actual self. I mean, it's true. I see this coaching time and time again. People barely even know who the fuck they are, okay? Only versions of themselves that they have conditioned themselves to be through trying to survive, right? Shaped by fear. The healing world reinforces this because it knows if you keep seeking, climbing, buying, striving, right? Then it becomes a business, right? It becomes an industry, right? Healing has become this whole industry. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I know I'm going to sound contradicting because that is also the realm of work that I play in. But what I'm really getting at is real healing, actual embodiment, true spiritual awakening. They require a dismantling of the very identity that is so obsessed with becoming someone. Okay? Healing addiction says, I must become more. Presence says, I already am. One will exhaust you and one will liberate you. Okay? The body understands your intentions more than your affirmations, right? You can tell yourself over and over again that I'm healing, I'm transforming, I'm elevating, I'm ascending, right? Whatever the affirmations you want to say are. But if the underlying energy is, I'm not safe as I am, your body feels this desire as a threat, okay? Your conscious desires, your conscious affirmations cannot override your subconscious programming. This is why so many of your practices, your journaling, your affirmations, your vision boards, they don't fucking work, right? Because you're not getting to the energetic root. You're not addressing yourself on an identity level, on a nervous system level, okay? Like, let's talk about psychology for a second. When you're constantly analyzing your trauma, watching your triggers, dissecting your patterns, looking for a deeper meaning, trying to break generational cycles, elevating your nervous system, right? Chasing the next breakthrough, so on and so forth. I think you can feel into where I'm going with this. Your body stays in a chronic sympathetic state, a subtle, persistent hum of activation in the body. Can you feel into that for a minute? Right? Healing becomes internalized as pressure, urgency, performance, danger, and your system learns relaxation isn't safe, stillness isn't safe, slowness isn't safe. So then what happens, right? You keep trying to heal, and not because you're actually growing or evolving or becoming anything, but simply because your body doesn't know how to stop, right? And here's the kicker with it. Chronic healing is its own form of disassociation. right? I'm sure your guys' brains are just being like blown up right now. You're gonna have to listen to this twice. But it really does. Chronic healing is its own form of disassociation. And it's a more socially acceptable one, for sure. A more spiritual looking one, absolutely. But it's still disassociation, in disguise. Because you're living in the future self you hope to become, not in the body you're actually inhabiting. Okay? And nobody talks about this. But you will, because you're the one dismantling illusions, right? So, let's talk about the ego's most clever trick. And that is creating this perfected version of self, or the healed self. Okay? So, if the ego can't be special by achieving, it will try to be special by healing. Healed self becomes an identity. It becomes a mask, a persona. But the ego doesn't want to heal, it wants to survive. That's all it cares about. So it builds an identity around its own evolution. I'm the one who's aware. I'm the one who's always doing the work. I'm the one who's trying to break the cycles. I'm the one who's conscious. This becomes like a spiritual inflation, right? Self-referencing, hypervigilance, introspection, identity addiction, okay? You begin living in a future version of you that doesn't exist, instead of meeting the raw, unfiltered self that actually needs love, attention, acceptance. This is why people burn out, right? Because the ego cannot evolve, it can only rearrange itself. Your nervous system is what evolves. Your soma is what transforms. Your truth is what gets liberated, not your identity. Okay? And if you're only scratching the surface on an ego level, it's not going to be sustainable. The body has to go first. The body has to come. The body has to lead. This is the part of the episode where people will DM me about this weeks later, because something in them will recognize that their healing persona has become a cage. 1000% yes. I see this time and time again, where this whole identity, this healing persona, this enlightened self, perfected self, literally becomes a cage in a prison that they're living in, where they don't allow these other aspects of self to be illuminated or be expressed, because they don't fit into this perfected version that their ego had created, right? They're essentially denying and repressing aspects of self which simultaneously hold their gifts and their power. Okay? And, you know, here are some things that we can do to really begin to draw awareness if this is alive within us. You know, if we're using healing to avoid ourselves. And here are some soul level cues, okay? Stillness feels unbearable. And it's not because you're lazy, but because in stillness, the truth becomes so loud. This is why so many people have this false sense of productivity and hustle, because within that, it's another form of avoidance, right? That's why so many people don't want to slow down. Number 2, you feel safer in transformation than in tenderness, right? To you, intensity is familiar, and this softness, this ease feels foreign. So we actually go and create it because the chaos and intensity feels safer to us. Isn't that fucking crazy, right? 3, you will begin to intellectualize your emotions. You name them, you analyze them, you interpret them, but you rarely ever feel them. There is a huge difference in thinking about your emotions and why you're sad and what's wrong and blah, 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 whatever you want to say it is, and to actually create space and safety to drop into your body and feel them. Huge difference. 4, you avoid the mundane, right? The dishes, the silence, the ordinary moments, because that's where the unmet self actually lives. It's in the pause. Okay? Number 5, you require meaning for everything. I see this all the time with people who wear enlightenment as an identity, right? What if this sensation that you're feeling isn't symbolic? What if it just wants to be felt? What if, this pattern or something that's showing up is inviting you to get closer and more intimate with yourself and your truth versus trying to put a label on it? Okay? Number 6, you are terrified of pausing because you fear that you're going to go backwards, that you're going to slip back. Okay? And truthfully, energetically, it's not a fear of regression. It's a fear of meeting your baseline self, of your true self, right? So many people get a sense of worthiness or purpose or, deservingness, importance in productivity and accomplishments that without those things, they feel like they don't have value. And that's why so many people fear slowing down and pausing, because within that, you meet who you are beneath all of the noise, all of the accolades, all of the titles, and people are fucking terrified of that. Number 7, you're addicted to becoming some type of like timeline, if that makes sense. Because, how do I want to word this? Because if you slow down, you might have to meet the grief underneath all of that striving, right? You might have to see that where you are right now is presenting you with all of the opportunities and obstacles to evolve, to transcend, to get to where you want to be, but you're so addicted to the other and to being somewhere else that you miss the medicine in the moment. And you reject reality, right? You suffer because you have this expectation or attachment to this made up place that you think will be better. But what you need to understand is where you are right now, the obstacles, the circumstances, they're not flaws, they're invitations. Okay? The real work is really about returning to the beginning. It's the medicine in the moment, in the present, when healing stops being this form of avoidance and we shift from this trying to fix everything to being in a state of allowance. Okay? The body cannot integrate what it does not feel safe enough to hold. Regulation is the foundation of transformation. Healing is not in the narrative. It's in the body, in those micro adjustments. When you feel the jaw soften, when the breath can lengthen, when the shoulders exhale, when the belly unclenches and expands, right? Your system isn't asking for more healing or chasing more ahas or peak states. It's asking for attunement. The deepest work is often the simplest. And that's why so many people avoid it, because it's so simple that people don't think that it's profound, but it is. The most profound depth that you'll find is in presence, in breath, in grounding, witnessing, allowing, truth-telling, resting. I'm sure most of you have rolled your eyes when I said resting. But it's true, right? No one heals alone. Witnessing rewires. Safety expands. Connection reorganizes the nervous system. This is the framework behind my at-home conscious therapy containers. because it's not about, creating dependency or escaping, but creating relational safety so that your system can begin to unwind and reorganize itself back into authenticity, back into truth, back into who you were at the very beginning of it all. Okay? I feel like we can't talk about this without really talking about the descent. And when I talk about descent, I'm really talking about the descent into allowance. And if you guys are open to it, I think right now I'm feeling called to share a short practice with you. And if you want to skip forward and do this later, but I want you guys just to notice what it feels like to really descend into the body and practice a deep state of allowance. And this is going to go deep. So if you're driving or doing something like that, I suggest this isn't the time. But if you have the space, if you feel called, let's do a little practice. So what I want you to do is to sit or lie down, get comfortable, and just take a few deep breaths. Really relaxing into the body, not trying to fix anything, not trying to change anything, just being here. Feeling what it feels like to arrive fully in this moment, maybe in the room you're in, knowing that it's all perfect. And as you continue to breathe into the body, I want you to place a hand on the part of your body that feels the most active right now. And this isn't to soothe it or to change it, but to simply witness it. And as you feel into this part of the body, I want you to say, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to know you. Letting the sensation speak without language. Feel the edges of it, the temperature of it, the movement or stillness inside of it. Notice the impulse to label it, where you want to put meaning to it. Notice the urge to fix it. And I want you to practice pausing right here and just meeting it. Letting this part of you know that you don't have to transform to be allowed. You're safe with me. And what this is doing is it reparents the parts of you that learned love had conditions. This rewrites the deep coding of the nervous system. This is healing, not in chase, but in intimacy. And you're welcome to stay with this part of yourself for as long as you need. Just allowing it to be here. The whole point in this moment is just to simply feel it. Not to label it, not to change it, not to fix it, not to make it go away, but to create space for it to be witnessed, to be allowed, and to be felt. And when you're ready, take a few more deep breaths. And what we're really doing here is, this is the liberation of letting yourself be human. Healing is not about ascending out of your humanity. It is about descending deeper into it. Not about becoming enlightened, but becoming real, present, attuned, alive. Because when you stop performing healing, you start living. You feel joy without earning it. You receive love without proving yourself for it. You rest without apologizing for it. You become ordinary in the most sacred way. The way a tree is ordinary, the way the ocean is ordinary, the way breath is ordinary. It's alive, it's present, unafraid to simply exist. Your journey is not about fixing who you are. It is about remembering who you were before the world convinced you that you were broken. And if you're exhausted from the chase, this is your invitation, right here, right now, to come home, to slow down, to let yourself be held, to let yourself be witnessed, to let yourself be human. Okay? And if you are in a season where you're craving depth instead of intensity, presence instead of performance, and safety instead of striving, I would invite you to explore my at-home psychedelic containers. They are designed to help your system unwind, to reset and reorganize so that healing can really find its way into the body and finally land. And if you want more information about this, on how to apply and what this work looks like, you can click into the show notes. You can send me a DM. I love to connect with all of you. But I hope you take this as a permission slip to allow yourself to embrace the messy, unique, beautiful essence that is you. That the whole point isn't to be constantly striving to fix yourself, to change yourself, to better yourself. And what would happen, and instead of striving for perfection or this betterness, if we cultivated or switched that with presence, allowance, witnessing, and how much more of your unique essence and soul and aliveness would have the capacity, room, and safety to come online when you realize that you were never broken. Take care. Love you guys.